Hello students, hope y'all are doing well. This week we're going to start discussing the Texas Legislature. The Legislature is important because this is the body that creates laws. They oversee a number of the processes that operate our government, that operate our state government. Couple of things you need to know. Our legislative body is elected from geographic districts. This differs from our executive branch. Our executive branch is elected in what are called statewide races or statewide elections. What this means is that everybody in the state of Texas votes for governor. Everybody in the state of Texas votes for lieutenant governor. Everybody in the state of Texas votes for the attorney general. However, our legislative branch is broken down into what's called districts. We will have certain districts, our state senators and our state representatives represent a district. Their constituency is a certain area, and they do not serve statewide. They only serve their area. The 10-year census is actually important to this. If you recall, when we discussed demographics, I kept on referring to the census, or we talked about the population of Texas in 1860, then 1940 or 1950, then 2010, projected population. What we need to remember is that the census occurs every 10 years, and it marks the number of people we have. This is important for politics. This is important for our geographic districts. I've included a map to, or excuse me, a link to the 2010, the last census for Texas for the USA. You'll see that population 2010, we had 25.1 million. Estimate at the end of 2014, Texas had almost 27 million people. And it breaks it down into demographics. Persons under 5, persons under 18, persons 65 years and over, female, white alone, black or African American alone. That was not what I meant to do. Hold on, please. Let's get back here. Thank you. The reason the census is important is because this data, this number, is used to redraw our congressional districts. We redraw our senatorial districts. We redraw our House districts. In Texas, we have 31 Senate districts, so we have 31 state senators. After we redistricted from the 2010 census, senators represented approximately 800,000 constituents. So that meant, every Senate district has approximately 800,000 people in it. For our House districts, Texas has 150 House districts. After redistricting from the 2010 census, House members represented approximately 160,000 constituents. Based on these numbers, which job would be more elite? I don't know if elite is the correct word, but which job would be more, I don't know what term I want. Which job would be more desirable? The Senate job, being a senator, would be more elite simply because you're actually serving more constituents. You are elected by 800,000 people, or you're attempting to serve 800,000 people versus 160,000. Each district has approximately equal representation thanks to a court case called Reynolds v. Sims. Reynolds v. Sims was an attempt to normalize or make fair the voting procedures. What we got from Reynolds v. Sims was something called one person, one vote. And it was to make sure that districts were not packed. What I mean by this is, if we have a district that has 10 people in it, District A has 10 people, District B has 4 people, District C has 4 people, District B is equivalent in voting strength to District A, even though they only have 4 people, even though District A has 2.5 times the population of District B or District C, they had the same voting strength. So under Reynolds v. Sim, what would happen is we would redistrict. We would have this one person, one vote. 10 plus 4 plus 4 is 18. So we would redistrict, and we would have 6 people in District A, 6 people in District B, 6 people in District C. To illustrate this, I usually use food. If you have 10 people in District A, 4 people in District B, 4 people in District C, and I say, what do you want for lunch? Hamburgers or pizza? Well, in District A, all 10 people vote for hamburgers. In District B, 3 out of the 4 vote for pizza, and in District C, 3 out of the 4 vote for pizza. Well, 6 out of the 18 voted for pizza, but because 2 districts voted for pizza versus District A who voted for hamburgers, we are going to go with pizza. This is not the majority rule. This is not the idea behind our democracy. So by equalizing, or trying to make equal, trying to come up with an approximate number of the same voters, we are trying to give each legislative district the same voting power. The Texas Legislature is in charge of redistricting. This is their job. Every 10 years they've got to do it. Is there ever a time that they won't have to? Yes, if the population stayed the same. Does that mean that they wouldn't have to redistrict? No, they could still choose to redistrict if they wanted to. They have to if population goes up or down. They have to redraw these district lines. If population stays the same, they can redistrict if they choose to. If the legislature fails in their duty to redistrict, the function is then given to the Legislative Redistricting Board. And I provided a link where you can go check out their website. Redistricting is not easy. We don't necessarily live close to each other. Texas isn't a small, compact, or even a square state. I mean, some of these other states, it'd be a lot easier if you could just draw grids over each state and say, this is District A, this is District B, or this is District 1, this is District 2. But we can't do that due to the population requirements. So how do we deal with this? How do we decide how we're going to district? One of the problems when we're trying to decide how we're going to do this is something called gerrymandering. Gerrymandering is usually defined as drawing district lines for partisan political advantage. So drawing district lines for partisan political advantage. What this means is that we're going to draw our district lines with the intent of keeping our political party, or the majority political party, in power. So in Texas, in 2011, after the results of the 2010 census, The Republicans were in charge of the Texas legislature, so they would redraw the legislative lines, they would redraw the districts for the intent to at least maintain, if not increase, the Republican Party power. Texas and gerrymandering. Texas is starting in 2000, or with the 2000 census, we had an issue with gerrymandering. The Democrats were in charge of the Texas legislature after the 2000 census, and don't get me wrong, gerrymandering is not limited to one party or the other. Both parties will gerrymander in an attempt to maintain their political power. Well, anyway, back to my original story. The Democrats, they're in charge of the Texas legislature in 2000. They redraw the districts to consolidate their power, to maintain their power. And this, we start to see infighting. The legislative Republicans, the Republicans in the Texas legislature, refused to accept this new redistricting that followed the 2000 census, and they forced the redistricting effort into the Legislative Redistricting Board. They did this because the Republicans enjoyed a 4-to-1 majority on the board, and they knew that Republican power would be consolidated. It would be brought to the forefront. Following redistricting, the 2002 election increased the Senate Republican majority to 19 and gave Republicans a majority in the Texas House for the first time since Reconstruction. So following the 2002 elections, Republicans now control the Texas legislature. They've already taken all the statewide offices. So with the 2002 elections, Republicans officially become the majority party. They officially become the party of power in Texas. What we need to realize about redistricting is this is a state government class, and I've been talking about state government. I'm talking about the state senators have their districts and that the state house members have their districts. But this also has a tie-in. This also touches on federal government. And what I mean by this is that while our U.S. senators represent the entire state, they are elected in statewide elections. The members of the House of Representatives that represent Texas are also elected from districts. Well, when the state legislature redistricts, when they redraw the legislative boundaries at the state level, they also redraw the legislative boundaries at the U.S. level, for the federal level. So they are redistricting also for the U.S. House. With the increase in Republican power, Texas becomes a red state. Texas becomes a Republican state. However, Governor Perry is unhappy because the Democrats still enjoy a large majority at the U.S. House level. House Democrats still outnumber House Republicans from Texas, even though Texas voted Republican in the last election. So, starting in 2000, Governor Perry calls 3 special sessions to redo the 2000 congressional redistricting. He wants Congress, he wants the state legislature to redraw the federal the U.S. House districts so that we're going to elect more Republicans than Democrats. The first 2 sessions failed to enact redistricting because House Democrats in the first session and Senate Democrats in the second session left the state. They went to Ardmore, Oklahoma, and I want to say they went to Louisiana the second time around. This prevented the Republicans from having a quorum. This prevented the Republicans from legally being able to meet. However, the Democrats finally realized that they would not be able to run away. They would not be able to put this off forever. So during the third special session, redistricting was approved. The congressional districts were gerrymandered. So following the 2004 election, the U.S. congressional delegation from Texas changed from a 17-15 Democratic majority to a 21-11 Republican majority. A lot of this was brought about due to the Speaker of the House, the Speaker of the U.S. House, Tom DeLay. He was from Sugarland. It was his idea to increase Republican power in Texas, also increase Republican power in the U.S. House. While he was successful in increasing this power, his success came at a price. Speaker DeLay was accused of some unethical conduct. He was forced to resign from office, and he was actually charged and convicted of crimes. We hear about gerrymandering, but the question is it legal? That's not a simple answer. It should be yes, it should be no. It should be one of the two. But in all honesty, the answer is simply, it depends on the purpose. What do you mean it depends on the purpose? If the party is doing it for the sole purpose of maintaining their political power, it is legal. And I'm telling you this now because I'm getting ready to talk about tactics to gerrymandering. There are 3 tactics that can be used to gerrymander. The first tactic is to diffuse minorities into a number of different districts. This is to place minorities into a number of different districts. Why would this be an issue? Well, once again, if you look at Texas, and the reason demographics are so important, minorities and women traditionally vote Democrat, while the Anglo population of Texas traditionally votes Republican. If the goal, if you're going to place, say, you're going to create 5 districts, and you create these districts where it's 60% or 70% Anglo and 40% minority, most of these districts, or you expect these districts to elect an Anglo. So if you are diffusing minority vote, if your intent is to make the minority vote not count, not be as important, to diffuse their vote so that they can't elect any minorities, or no minorities can be elected to government, this tactic is illegal. If you're going to diffuse minority voters, you can't do this. If that's the only purpose, that's illegal. The second tactic is to create what's called a majority-minority district. The idea here is the majority of the people in this district are going to be minorities. You might put 60% African American, 60%, 70%, 80% African American, or 60%, 70%, 80% Hispanic. into a district. The idea here is that you're trying to diversify by putting a high number of minorities into one district. The expectation is that they're going to elect somebody from their race and or ethnicity. So if you put 70% Hispanic or 70% African American in one district, you expect them to elect a Hispanic or elect an African American. So if you're creating a majority-minority district with the intent of getting more minorities elected to the state legislature or into Congress, that is legal. The third tactic, and I like this tactic the best, the third tactic is called pairing, or the pairing technique. And what happens is, to run for office, you have to live in the district that you represent. So they will, in this case, the Republicans, if we're in Texas, they would redraw the districts. They would take 2 Democratic districts and they would redraw them so that they would place the incumbent, their homes, in the same district. This way, the incumbents have to run against each other. So you have two districts that you know are a Democrat, but you withdraw them. One district's going to remain Democrat because one Democratic incumbent is running against the other. However, a Republican is going to hope, or the Republicans are going to hope, that a Republican can win that new district they created. They are taking out that incumbent advantage. I talked about districts being drawn and how nice and neat it would be if we could just put in little squares. I've included a link here to show you 10 of the most gerrymandered districts in the United States. Let's see. Is this the one I want, or is it the other link? Let's check the other link first. It's here. I know I have it. Ah, here we go. Here's one called the Hanging Claw. If you look at North Carolina's 4th district, you see how far north and south it stretches, east and west, how it's drawn. Maryland's 3rd district, nicknamed the Pinwheel of Death. Ohio's 9th district, the Mistake by the Lake. They are drawing these with the intent to protect political power. You see, there's no rhyme or reason why they're drawn. They're not even nothing. The 8 Mile Mess in Michigan, in Illinois, the Latin earmuff for their 4th district. There's no rhyme or reason with the exception of protecting political power. Those are all legal if that's the reason you're doing it. Those are the examples. Sorry, I need to fix that slide. It is important to remember that gerrymandering can happen at both the state and federal level. I've included a link here where you can go look at Texas. You can see our maps after redistricting. We have grown. You can see how there's no rhyme or reason. There's no particular reason in regards to how we drew our new districts. We've talked about districts and where you get elected from. But let's start looking at qualifications for membership. What do you have to do? What has to happen for you to be elected, for you to win one of these districts? Texas wants to make participation in politics very easy. Their qualifications are very minimal. They are not hard to reach, to maintain. if you want to run for the Texas House of Representatives, very simple. You must be a U.S. citizen. You must be 21 years of age. Your residency. You must have lived in the district that you wish to represent for 1 year, and you must have lived in the state of Texas for 2 years. You must be a registered voter. If you win, if you become a House member, you will serve a 2-year term. Texas we do not have term limits in the state of Texas. What this means is that, term limits at the state level. What this means is that you can serve for as many terms as you win. If you can win 10 terms in a row, you can serve 20 years. If you only win 2, you serve 4 years, go home. You can come back at a later date and try again. You are not limited in the amount of public service you can do. Being a member of the U.S. House is a part-time job. It is a job. Job indicates that there is compensation, there is pay. It's just not much. We talked about in the constitutions how we would lower the payment for our legislature. You get paid $7,200 per year to be a Texas legislature. Your boss, the leader, the person in charge of the Texas House of Representatives, is the Speaker of the House. Formal qualifications continued. We talked about the Texas House, so let's talk about the Texas Senate. These are going to look a lot like the formal qualifications for the House. Citizenship, must be a U.S. citizen. You must be 26 years of age. Your residency, you must have lived in the district you're going to serve for 1 year, but you must have lived in the state for 5 years. Once again, you must be a registered voter. The term length is different. In the Senate, you serve 4-year terms. However, like I stated a minute ago, you can serve unlimited terms. We do not have term limits. This job is also part-time. Job, once again, indicates compensation. You do get paid. You also get paid $7,200 per year. Your leader, your boss in the Texas Senate is going to be the Lieutenant Governor. Now, while they're formal qualifications, where are we going to find these formal qualifications, these age and residency requirements? We're going to find them in the Constitution. Well, there's also informal qualifications. We don't find these. They're not listed. You don't have to meet them. But meeting them helps get you elected. Race could be argued to be the most important informal qualification. If you think back to our lecture earlier when I discussed the Texas population in 2010, 40% of the Texas population is non-Hispanic white, 37% is Hispanic, 11% is African American, 4% is Asian American, and 1% is other. Keep these numbers in mind. These are the demographics of Texas. So if the legislature is supposed to look like the demographics of Texas, then 47% of the legislature would be non-Hispanic white, 37% would be Hispanic, 11% would be African American, 4% Asian American, 1% other. In reality, in the 81st legislative session, 20% of the members of the Texas House were Hispanic. What did I say the the population of Texas was Hispanic? 37%. But yet only 20% of the Texas House is Hispanic. 9% were African American. This is close to the 11% that we see in the general population. 0.01% were Asian American. We had 2 Asian American representatives in the 81st legislative session. Remember, 4% of Texans were of Asian descent. And 4% isn't a lot, but it's a lot more than that 0.01%. "24% of the members of the legislative session, so 24% of our legislators were women. Ladies, y'all account for almost 50% of the Texas population. Y'all are the most underrepresented group in the Texas legislature. I've included a link to the demographics from previous Texas legislative sessions, so you can go see number of Anglos, African Americans, Hispanics, if you so choose. So while party may be considered the most important informal qualifications, others do exist. Usually to win a statewide office in Texas, you must be a WASP. No, I don't mean you fly around and bug people. WASP is simply white, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant. Most of our elected officials, the occupation they follow is either an attorney or a doctor, or they're businessmen or businesswomen. Why is this? What do you need to get elected to office? Do you need charisma? Do you need looks? Do you need talent? All of those are important, but the most important thing you need is money. Look at these occupations: attorney, doctor, businessman. These are either going to make you a lot of money, or they're going to put you in contact with people who have a lot of money, who can support your bid for, or your bid for whatever elected office you want. They can donate to your campaign. Finally, the last thing I want to ask is, can party be an informal qualification? And the answer is yes. If you look at Texas today, if you want to run and win for a statewide office, what party do you need to be a member of? Well, and this even applies to the Texas legislature. What party do you need to be a member of? We have very few Democrats in power right now that are holding elected office. So you could say, yes, you need to be a Republican to win. So party can be an informal qualification. Right now in Texas, if you are a Democrat, you are probably not going to win your race.